But if we say something like God, you said God, it's possible for God to exist. And my argument is that God, by definition, is a thing that exists in all possible worlds, therefore it has to exist.
Wait, what? You're just saying God has to exist, but we don't know if that statement is true.
No, but because it's not a contingent thing. It's not like the swans were white. It's something that's intrinsic to the definition of God. Because God, you said it's possible for God to exist, right? There's nothing, theoretically absurd about it.
If I said God can't exist, then would that mean that he can't exist?
No, because there's nothing in the definition of God that would preclude or presuppose the
No.
anti-definition of that. So
Well, I
what I'm saying is
believe
that
in the. Okay, well, in that case, then what I believe in is the God defeating butt plug, and here it is, and therefore God does not exist. That's the definition of this. This is also not a butt plug. It's like a pop socket, just for the record. But this disproves God's existence because that's the definition of it.
no, I think there's more foundational arguments to be made, but that's definitely one. That's the Saint Anselm argument that a thing which exists in all possible worlds in theory has to, by definition, exist if you give it plausibility. And I mean, whatever you just said about the butt plug, I mean, you kind of already believe that because you believe multiverse theory, right? So that means literally every permutation of
I
something
don't
that could
believe
exist
in.
does exist.
I don't know if I believe in multiverse theory or not.
Okay, well, I
The math,
apologize for
the
presuming that you
math, the
don't
math
believe
says
the
it can. The math says it can exist, but the math also says that what do you call those? Unipole magnets can exist, but they don't actually in the actual universe. The math says that they can, but they don't.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that
I
would be
mean,
a ridiculous argument anyway
you can
because
use math to describe all kinds of ideal things that can't exist because in the universe they just simply can't.
yeah, and we did math for like things like I don't know, the geocentric model versus the heliocentric model. I mean, you can make a bunch of
Oh yeah, that
hoopla.
didn't work.
So things could be, in theory, they can be structurally sound. It doesn't make them true. I understand that. Um, I just think that the closest thing, because I'm not stupid when it comes to science. It's kind of my undergraduate and graduate stuff. But I
Well,
did
no, you
become a
seem like a
Catholic.
pretty smart
Yeah,
dude.
but I am a Catholic. I am a Catholic. I have to say that. We're a minority, but there definitely are Catholic scientists and people in the sciences and stuff. Um, but I think the contributions of philosophy, that there is something more fundamental. Like if I ask you, how do you even know truth exists? I mean, you can't go back infinitely, right? Because that's infinite regression.
Why would I need infinite regression to say that? What was the original thing? How do I know that truth exists?
Yeah, I mean, like what's
Okay,
your chain of events
does the
of that?
universe exist?
Uh, well, yes, of course.
Is that true?
Yes, but these
Okay,
things
then
are
truth
not.
exists, and there will be sets of true things within that universe that does exist, and it's true that it exists. So there's a true thing that exists.
Yeah, I no, I agree with this. These are
Oh, okay.
self-evident things. These are self-evident things. I have a problem with physical reductionism, which essentially doesn't account for it. And I think the only thing that does account for it is when we look at things like truth, which is a universal that doesn't exist in material world. You have to presuppose God because God is the only thing that is both universal and transcendental. And if your scientific method is that everything has to be justified or accounted for, science is not going to account for the fact that, I mean, we both agree are self-evident, like truth, like the universe, like etc. Right?
I mean, I just believe that there is a universe and there are facts within the universe, and so I can discover and understand those facts.
Yeah, but it's
I haven't been
presupposed.
needed to that the universe exists.
Yeah, you are presupposing all of that. I mean, how do you know that?
How am I
Like, I mean, this.
presupposing the universe exists if I and the universe are existing simultaneously?
I mean, you're even presupposing the demarcation between you and the universe, the fact that there's something called a subject and an object. That when this is kind of like I
Well,
forgot
no,
the
I
guy.
experience it.
Yeah, well, how do you know your experience is not just the only experience to ever exist and that everything that exists is just contingent on your mind? Like, that's kind of like a really classical philosophy thing that's raised.
Sorry, are you making a solipsist argument?
Yeah, I mean, eventually, right? You'd have to.
Okay. I mean, if
I mean, if
solipsism
you're,
is true, then that would be my existence.
I mean, that's a pretty, I mean, I mean, this
It
is,
doesn't mean that I don't exist. It doesn't mean that the universe doesn't exist. If the
yeah,
universe
that's why
is a
you need faith, right?
simulation, then that's what the universe is. It still exists.
But that's why you need faith.
In what?
Well, the fact that you need faith in order to presuppose all of those things, and if even the alternative
I'm not
is,
making a claim though. I'm not claiming that I don't live in a simulation. I might.
I mean, that is a very abysmal
I
thing
have
to,
no evidence that I do or do not live in a simulation, and I'm not making a claim. But how's that funny? I'm not making a claim that I do or do not live in a simulation. I literally don't need faith for this.
no, I'm laughing because I think we've kind of hit the threshold where, like, we're talking past each other. And it's,
It's possible.
yeah, I mean, this is what I just think that Christian presuppositionalism, which is kind of the epistemological school of thought, obviously, that I come from, that kind of undergirds my science, at least. Um, you
Yeah,
don't
but
seem to
it's
think,
completely circular, isn't it? You're just presupposing that you have the answer or the explanation for the answer.
no, you're doing that.
About what?
About science even being a reliable like science.
I don't presuppose it. I sort of do. I assume that it probably is a good tool. But what
Uh-huh.
science does is it actually carries out investigations which seek to confirm the soundness of the logical claims that it makes. What would be extremely unwise for me to do is to sit around and be like, well, everything that I think is presupposed to be true, therefore it is true. That's what philosophers used to do, and it's why we used to think that the sun goes around the earth.
Yeah, but the things that you presuppose are things which exist but do not exist in their material reality. Like truth, like again, you can't find truth under a rock, but truth undergirds all of science, right? So you agree that
Maybe.
everything is presupposed.
Do I?
Yes, the fact that you even need to ask that question means you do it. Because in a question is presupposing an answer or a potential answer or some sort of form of falsifiability.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just going blah, 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 blah.
So if it's presupposed, why do we need a scientific method then?
If it's presupposed, why do we need the scientific method?
Yeah, and if the scientific method demonstrated that there was something false about what I believed in, well, then I would just say, well, yeah, but I presuppose that it's true, so I guess the scientific method is false.
No.
And this has
Well,
happened this has happened so many times before.
no, I'm a little confused.
So am I.
No, that's okay. No, no, that's okay. I'm just no, I think this is an informative discussion, although I don't think, I mean, obviously you'd seem more like a, I mean, I don't want to taxonomize you or whatever, but it's logical positivism. So the only truths that exist are truths that are found in reality, material reality, through scientific method, and truths that are just true by definition. But I think there's synthetic truths. I think there's presuppositional truths, such as God.
How can something that you just assume to be true literally be called true? Because I can just presuppose that you're wrong. There. The butt plug. This is the God defeater.
No, because on a foundationalist level, because I'm a foundationalist, I think that like if you say something, it has to like go through kind of an infinite regress until it hits God, or at least you have to go to like Rene Descartes and think, I think therefore I am. So like Rene Descartes, who's kind of doubting the existence of truth to even exist. Like, what? How do I know, for example, I'm not just in my own head with a demon pulling all my things and it's a simulation? I'm in a vat. That's kind of the simulation argument. But you kind of need this presuppositional faith to say that truth is ascertainable and there's things which are beyond you in material reality, as opposed to you just having a hallucination.
Okay, so but I can presuppose whatever I want.
No, you can't.
What the hell do you mean? No, I can't.
Because if you say the butt plug thing, then it's like literally a material object.
Yeah, but I
There's,
presupposed it.
no, there's nothing in the form of logic through the foundationalist cycle that you would have to, that's even necessary.
That didn't make any sense. I'm not talking about. I'm not
No, no,
saying
no.
that the. I'm just. It's the nature of the butt plug.
It's not an axiom.
Yes, it is. It's axiomatic. It's the God defeater.
No, you're
That's
just
literally the description of it. That is its nature.
yeah, but this you're literally saying that presuppositionalism is just like a blank space that you can just fit any object in and say, aha, well, I presupposed it. And I'm saying that you don't put you don't put physical objects into that presuppositionalism because
I'm not talking about the actual thing. I'm talking about the nature of the thing.
yeah, what's the nature of the thing?
It's a God defeater. That is its nature.
What's the logic in that?
That is the essence of what it does. It's presupposed. I don't need to justify it.
I think that is a ridiculous argument. Because
Okay.
what I'm trying to get at something a little bit more systematic that makes a little bit more cohesive.
But you've done the same
just,
thing with God. You're saying God has to. We have contingent things, and God is the only thing that can explain these contingent things. Prove it. I don't need to prove it. It's presupposed.
well, I think that God undergirds all those presuppositional truths, not by virtue of the fact that it's just kind of a meaningless thing in theory in the material reality, but because it actually gives explanation and coherence to the system of thought. So a butt plug wouldn't do that, quite, frankly. But God, which is a thing which is immaterial, that is
But I'm
universal.
telling you that that's what a butt plug does.
It's immaterial and universal.
The nature of it is, yes.
No, but that's just an amorphous
Was
thing that you
Jesus
can't
a
actually.
physical material being?
Do you think there's such a thing as qualia?
Was Jesus a physical material being?
Well, he was fully man, fully God.
Okay,
So
well, this is fully butt plug, but fully also the essence of invalidating the idea of God. That is its nature. So a thing can be both.
I mean, I think you would have to go back and kind of delineate whether or not there's such a thing as qualia, because a butt plug, the nature of it, or whatever you want to insert, is not actually part of a good faith discussion on that. Do you think there's such a thing as qualia?
I have no idea what you mean by that. I was also it just like really quickly before we like start talking about other things. I said you can presuppose whatever you want, and you said no, you can't. I don't
Yeah,
get why
absolutely not.
not. The question of where exactly do I ground the justification I have for thinking that the scientific method is useful is actually just a worthless endeavor to me because all I'm interested in is the continued progress that the scientific method produces. And I don't think you can argue that that hasn't been the case. And the other stuff, it's not really exactly what I'm interested in.
Just one thing
It's
I want
fun
to
to
add to
talk
what you
about
just said.
sometimes, but
To what you just said, if you're as far as epistemology is concerned, if you're a fallibilist or you're a pragmatist, then there is no inconsistency with justifying the scientific method. Both those approaches, I think, are perfectly fine. Like if you don't claim that you have to have certainty to have knowledge, and if you're more concerned with the utility of certain concepts, then believing or trusting and valuing the scientific method is perfectly consistent with those schools of thought. I'm not saying, I'm fairly agnostic as to where I stand on my epistemology at this point. But the only thing I'm saying is that, and again, I'm not saying that you're saying this because I only just came in, but often I hear apologists say that without God, none of these things can be grounded. The logic can't be grounded without God. And that to me is complete nonsense. Like that's just not the case.
yeah, none of the assumptions about science need a god. I mean, if you think that the universe operates according to like fixed natural law, then that will get you all the way to explaining all of the things that occur in this universe, maybe except for some quantum mechanical type things. And that's all I'm interested in being able to do. So